Hello and welcome to this tutorial. This is actually part 2 of the lightsaber modeling. So we've got our lightsaber model here, and now we need to use our shading. We need to shade some materials. So we're going to basically develop materials that look sort of photorealistic using the shader, apply those materials to the lightsaber, and then we'll go ahead and sort of stage it, put some lights on it, and get an environmental texture on it. So all that finishing stuff. So here we've got a reference image, as you can see, and we've got our model, and our modeling has been completed here. So let's talk a little bit about materials. I've moved the reference picture up here so that we can get a better look at the materials, because that's what we're focusing on now that we've modeled the object. So remember, in your down at the bottom of your properties panel here, there's the materials property. So let's go ahead and create our first material. And my advice always here is, and we want to go into object mode, these materials are all associated with the object. So in this particular case, we have no materials. Sometimes there'll be a default material and you can just alter that material. We're going to go ahead and add a slot for a material and put a new material in it. We're going to go ahead and name this silver. And the reason I suggest we use silver is because the vast majority of it is silver, and this sort of forms the base. And then we'll apply it. We'll go ahead and create a black, kind of a black dark sort of rough surface, and then kind of a copper metallic surface. But let's focus on the silver surface. So silver, it gives us this by default a principled BSDF shader, and that gives us a lot of access to changing things. We really only need to change 3 things to get kind of that silver. Actually 2 things. The color is fine, actually white. You can brighten it up if you want a little bit brighter white. I'm going to go ahead and do that. Down here for metallic, remember, if it's metal, it's pretty much 1, and if it's non-metal, it's 0. There are very few things in nature that are partially metallic. And you can already see it sort of picking up a metallic sheen here on the object, because I am in what's called material preview or look dev mode, depending on what version of Blender you're in. So that's great. Now we just need to make it a little shinier. And the reason it's not as shiny is because roughness is turned up to 0.5. So as we back off roughness, we can see it's getting shinier. And so somewhere between 0.1 and 0.2 is probably pretty good. Now it still looks low poly. We've got all these little quads or rectangles here, and we'll fix that once we get our colors onto the object. So we'll be dealing with that here. I'm going to zoom in a bit. We need to put some black on some areas here. It's helpful if you're looking right at it from the side. I'm going to hit 1 on my numpad. That's where the numbers are over on the right of your screen, just to make sure I'm looking at it from the front. You might be looking at it from the side depending on which way you modeled it, but you want to have this orientation that I'm kind of looking at. So we're going to go back into or up in our properties panel to where we can see the silver material. We're going to add another slot. Let's go ahead and add copper is kind of the next easiest one. So we have to click the new button to get the material loaded in there. And we're going to set it to copper. But you can see over here, this is like a little preview. It's looking more white than copper, like that white marble. So we want to change, again, 3 things because this is a metal. We're going to go to base color, choose a dark orange. We're going to come down to metallic, and we're going to increase that to 1, and we're going to decrease again our roughness to like between 0.1 and 0.2 is probably good. You can preview your material before you apply it. There is this little tick box up here at the top of your materials panel, and so that's a pretty good copper there. So I think our copper is good. To apply our copper, we're going to have to go into edit mode. So I'm going to switch here into edit mode because we need to select and assign that color to faces. I'm going to hold down shift and my middle mouse button to slide over so we can see where the copper goes. So the copper is going to go here, and the copper is going to go here, and then you can't forget the copper is actually going to go on these faces as well. So rather than selecting each of these one at a time by holding shift, that would be effective, I guess, but take a lot of time, be tedious. You can hold down on the Alt button. So I'm holding down Alt, and I click on one of these faces and all of them. And if I hold down Shift Alt, I can then move over here and click on one of those. And then I can even use my middle mouse button to kind of tilt it over here. Again, hold down Alt and Shift and click on that. On that inner one. Now all of the faces that are connected are selected. And now I can come over, I can select copper, and then this is the button here, assign, okay, where you're going to assign that. And so that's been assigned, and you can see that I shift clicked off of those. So I'm going to go ahead and hold down shift, select both of those manually, apply copper, and get the copper put on. So all right, so we've got our copper on there. That's our second easiest color. Now black is the hardest color, not to make, but to apply, because we have all of these little sections that need black on it here. I'm going to hit 1 again to go back to my front orthographic view. So let's come back over here. I'll go back into object mode just in case, make sure we're getting our material here. So we're going to add a slot, and we're going to click new again like we did before. You know, we'll call this black. And I'll close the preview here for a moment. We'll scroll down a little bit. You're going to want to change your slider over here all the way down to black. We are going to, it is not metallic. In fact, we actually want to increase the roughness. We really want it to catch the light and absorb the light so it's darker. So we might bring that up to like 0.9 or 1, depending on your preference. Okay. So if we come up and click on preview, it's dark, it's kind of matte. Let's see if that does the trick for us here. But we're going to have to come back over here into edit mode, select edit mode. And here's what I'd suggest you do. For the, obviously for this section, we could kind of use that same technique. Here we can hold down Alt to select, and then Alt Shift to select this ring in order to get these to be black. And then we can hold our middle mouse button, come over, again hold Alt and Shift, and select one of those faces. Now we have all of those faces in that section selected. We could actually come back and select Alt Shift and select this as well, because it looks like this is supposed to be black. All right, so we come over here, make sure black is selected in our properties panel, and we click that assign button to assign it to faces. All right, now comes probably the most time consuming part. And here's a technique I would suggest. We have to make these faces in here black, but we want to do it all the way around. If you just box select those and you flip around to the back, you'll see they're not selected there. So in order to select all of those, what we want to do is come up here, and we're going to click on this little guy here. Okay, this is the toggle X-ray button. Okay, so with the toggle X-ray button, it shows all these little dots for all the faces, but kind of is a visual that you're seeing through the entire object. And you might need to get in here and zoom in a bit more in order to do this. But now when I select, or box select, and I shift around to the back, you can see that all the faces have been selected. So that's much faster kind of workflow. And I'm going to go ahead and assign black. And I'm just going to do it one at a time here. So I'm going to select all of those. I've got my X-ray on. I've got black selected, assign. So it goes much quicker. Now sometimes you miss one like I did there. Hold down Shift and draw your box again, and your other parts will stay selected, right? So that happens actually quite a bit if I don't quite get far enough over. All right, almost finished with assigning the colors. Now here is the last one, but notice on the reference image, this is kind of black here, this first one. So I'm going to use my Alt trick and click on, and sometimes that happens, it loops around the object. If you select towards the top of a face, sometimes you'll get a better chance of getting that ring of faces selected there. All right, so I'm going to go to black again, assign that. And now I feel like I'm done. I'm going to switch off my X-ray so those little dots go away. So now we run into, oh, I do have some black to apply at the very end here. Notice that the little nub here is black, so I can change that. I think I am going to select this guy, Alt, Shift, select, oops. I'm going to select off here, see if I can get the loop. There we go. And then select this guy, shift select that guy. There we go. So see what happens if I turn that black, and then I kind of look at it from the side. That looks pretty close. Your call, you might make that next piece black as well if you wanted to. I think I'm happy with that, so I think I'm going to leave that alone. All right, so we've got all our colors applied to the various places. I actually am pretty much done looking at the reference piece. So I'm going to go back into object mode, select that, and up in my outliner, that's the little collections area up here, I can click the little eye. And because it's empty, even in render mode, it won't show up. So I do want to make this smoother. Now, if I right click and choose, I got to left click my object, right click to get my object context menu, and then shade smooth. You can see some of this area is perfect. That's exactly what I want right in here. But some of these areas and some of these areas get a little bit deformed. We're seeing the reflection of the default HDR in there too, so you can kind of see some trees and stuff, but that'll work itself out. We'll get that fixed here in a bit. What we're concerned with primarily is making sure that we still keep the form, that we don't have too much rounding going on, because there's some rounding going on. So this is a new panel for us. If you scroll down in your properties panel, you'll see this is what's called the object data properties. It looks like a little green triangle with points at the end. Go ahead and click that, okay, and then you will find a normals setting, and there's an auto smooth feature, and if you click that, you can see this snaps back, and it prevents a lot of that rounding from happening that we don't want, so we still get more of a defined a more defined look, and that looks more photorealistic. That's looking pretty sharp at this point. Okay, so now we're ready to just kind of light and stage this. So staging is relatively easy. One of the things you could do is use Shift S and move your cursor to the world origin, so it puts the well, I don't know if it actually did. Let me see. Let me hit 1. There we go. So I had to hit 1 in order to choose it, and let me click that in the pie menu. But there's my 3D cursor, that little target looking thing. I'm going to Shift A, add. I'm going to add a plane because I just want something flat. I'm going to rotate it around the, let's see, I need to rotate it around the X axis 90 degrees. So RX 90. Oops. I must have messed it up somewhere. So I am going to use Alt-R to clear the rotation and try that RX 90 again. There we go. That's what I need. I'm going to go ahead and hit S to scale that. Probably I'll just hit 20 to get a nice big, and it's probably still in the middle, like it's splitting our lightsaber. So I'm going to slide it back along my y-axis by using GY. It's not sliding back here. GY. Oh, interesting. When I hit Y, I am on my normal. Somehow my transform orientations went to normal up here. Not sure how, but under global is what I want. I want it to GY along the globe. And I'm just going to move it just a little bit back so my lightsaber is still resting there kind of in the front of it. And I think I'm going to be rendering it kind of like my reference image here. So right now it looks great, but remember we're in material preview right here. So if we go to render, it's going to be dark. So we need to throw some light on here. We need some of our own lights, and then we need environmental light. You can also brighten up the background. If you go over here and click the world properties, it's set as kind of a dark gray. So you can immediately lighten it up just by kind of, you know, adjusting this. So I'm going to kind of make it a sort of a medium gray. In order to get more light, I'm going to go ahead and click into, see if I can scooch this over a little bit so we can see. No. So there's my shading. I'm in my shading workspace. It's just next to texture paint. And you can see the HDR and everything down here. I'm pretty happy with the materials and everything on the object, but here there's a little drop down. So you can click world. And if you pan out or zoom out, use your middle mouse wheel, and you can kind of, just like your viewport, kind of navigate around. You can see that light gray that I've created. So you can actually change it here too. So you can see the, if I go into render, you can see as I change the color, right, I can change the color of the environmental light here as well. So just as I did over in the properties panel. But what we're looking for here is the add button. We're going to add a texture, and if you look up towards the top, it's in alphabetical order for the most part. There's the multiple images and image sequence, but we want environment texture here. So click on texture, add texture, environment texture. And if you move your mouse down, you'll see you've got a node here. And so you want to click that node to the left of the green node. So we've got this orange environment texture color. And we're going to go ahead and slide this over. Now you'll see it'll all turn pink because it's basically this magenta color indicates that we have not picked a file yet. We need to go pick an HDR. So we're going to go to open and we're going to find an HDR. So I believe I've got an HDR somewhere on my system already. So let me see if I can't find it. Might need to download it again. Oh, I bet it's in Documents. Let's go to Documents here. Documents, Blender. Yeah, I've got a file for HDR. So we've been using this Etnies Park Center 3K. Got a lot of grays in it. It's usually really nice. You could try other HDRs too, and I can show you how to do that. But I picked that one for now and click Open Image. And you can see when we zoom back out, we've got it now in the park. It's nice, bright, a lot of grays. And when we zoom in here, we can see that the scene is more lit. In order to get rid of the picture, remember, because we don't really want the picture, we just want the light in the picture. If you go up to your render settings, your render properties, looks like kind of the back side of a camera, like a. And if you scroll down here, you're going to click on film and then click transparent. And so now we just have the light, but the picture's gone away. All right, well, we need more light and we need to adjust our camera. I'm going to go ahead and I'm done with my shading here. So I'm going to go back over to layout mode, what we're used to, and take a look at what I could do here. So my plane right now is totally reflecting the gray light. And I realize I don't have a material on here. So I'm going to go ahead and go into materials, click that new slot, put a material in it. It's going to be white, and I think I'm fine with that. So I think I'm good. I could adjust the roughness a bit to make it a little smoother. But all right. So next, I'm going to get some light pointing at the lightsaber here and get my camera set up. Remember to get your camera set up. Probably the easiest thing to do is hit N as in Nancy. Find the View tab right here and go down and click Camera to Viewport. So it kind of locks your camera to the viewport. So that way you can kind of drive the camera. When you click the camera or toggle to the camera view, okay, now you can just drive it kind of like your viewport and get your picture set up. I'm just trying to model mine kind of like the, I think that's probably good. So I can kind of see the, I'm going to move it at an angle here just so I can see the end with the little black nub there at the end. Okay, so I'm liking that. Let me throw some light on it. So I'm going to move out of camera view. I'm going to find my light here, which is probably up here. It's often easier to do this from the top-down view, so I'm going to click the little blue circle Z to go into top orthographic. And there you can see my light. I want this light. I'm going to hit G to move it towards my camera. I'm going to turn it into a sun, so you can go to the little light bulb icon on your properties manual. And if you hover over that, you'll see it's object data. It happens to be a light, so it changes. We're going to hit sun. Sun's directional, so we can grab the yellow handle and point that over. It's at 1,000, so it's going to wash it out. So we need to probably go with something like 10. I want it to be pretty bright. I'm going to go ahead and Shift-D duplicate the light. I'm going to put a little fill light a little bit over here. It's, let's see, G. So I'm going to kind of make that a fill light. I'm going to throw a 5 on there. Maybe give it a little bit of a tint, not much. And now I'm going to come back Shift-D. I don't know if I'm going to do a backlight. Maybe I'll just come back over here because we're doing it from the side and there's a panel behind it. So I might come over here and just, I've duplicated that light. So let me maybe look to see how that's operating. It's hard to see if you're directionality is good from here. So it's always good to flip back to, like, I'm going to hit 1 on my numpad and flip back here. So my lights are all a little bit high, but honestly with suns it doesn't make a difference. They're not really, it's not really dependent on the distance. I can use GZ in order to kind of bring them down a bit. Now let's pop back into camera mode and see what we're looking at. All right, well that looks pretty good. Like I said, it's angled a little bit more so I can see the end. I'm going to come in like this. All right, so we've got all this overlays and stuff. Remember, always before you render, you're going to go to File, and you're going to save, and then you can click the Render menu up here. I know render, there's a lot of renders. This is the, technically, this is the viewport shading rendered, and then this is the render properties, and then this is the render menu. So anyway, let's click Render and see what we've got. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that. I might angle it a little bit more. It's catching some light here and here. So it's maybe you turn the lights down a little bit. It looks like it's washed out a little bit. So I'm gonna come in, find that main light, and see if I can drop that back to 7 and see if that makes a difference. Little bit. Maybe I will try my other lights at a 3, and I'll change this one to a 3 and come back here to render. All right, yeah, that looks to me like that's probably a bit better. So once you're happy with your render, you can keep tweaking it. For the sake of the tutorial, I'm going to go ahead and select Image and Save. Remember, what render does is it produces an image, by default a PNG. So if you hit Save, you can see here it's attempting to save an untitled picture as a PNG file. So here we want to put like Lightsaber, maybe underscore rendered or something like that. So we know that this is not just the model, but we've actually got it rendered and it's ready to roll. Hit Save Image As, keep track of where you're saving it. I'm going to make it, yeah, mine looks good. Blender, my Blender class. Now I'm going to go ahead and put it in my documents and under Blender models and Lightsaber project. So I'm going to go ahead and save it there. All right, so that is now saved. So you want to make sure to, of course, put that rendered image, upload that onto your portfolio. You can go into your portfolio, create a slide called Lightsaber project, you know, and just hit Image Upload, find your image, and upload that. And then go ahead and submit your portfolio to Canvas. So thanks very much for your time and attention, and I will see you in the next tutorial.